Paul on South Palm 1083, probably by Willard. How we doing?
Good, you?
Drove a little fast out of that lot, don't you think?
I know.
What's going on?
A little scared.
Why?
That's all. I don't know.
All right, turn around.
Yep.
You're gonna be under arrest for OUI.
The alcohol was a major problem, but the pot was even more of a problem. Leaving a buddy's house, blacked out, don't even remember even getting in my car, driving down back roads going 83 miles an hour, don't know what roads I was on, I wasn't buckled in, I went off the road, hit a telephone pole and got back on the road. It all started when I was 13 years old. Vaping was the first substance I found. With nicotine, with it being my first substance I started with, it's still a substance I do now. It is one of the hardest substances that I have come across to quit. I have tried quitting nicotine about 8 times between nicotine patches, nicotine gum, just using all of my options. A bunch of my buddies had older siblings and we would go down to like their dog parties or we would just find our way there. And I would just see all the stuff going around, like the drinks and the bongs and the blunts, and it would end up in my hand somehow. They were just like, do you guys want to try? And I'm like, yeah, like the older kids are offering, why not? I thought it was safe because I'm watching everyone else use it, so I figured there was nothing wrong with it. It led to me wanting to not live anymore and me needing it every day to just wake up and get out of bed. I had lost 35 pounds and my mom's just watching me get thinner and thinner and thinner, and she's trying to feed me and get me to eat, but I just won't eat because I have to be high.
So a lot of what I talk to parents about is there's a dose-dependent relationship related to the risks of marijuana in particular. So that means the earlier you start using, the more often you use it, the higher potency you use it, and the longer you use it, I'll increase your risk.
So what we know from oral use is that the amount and potency has gone up quite a lot and exponentially. So high dose is the rule. High dose has become the norm. And that just magnifies the problem because this is not the 1970s when it was getting high after school. This is high dose, 30, 50, 100 milligrams of pure THC in orals. In vaping, you're getting pure concentrated THC. And then there are dabs, which is distillate THC that's often added to marijuana and smoked or vaped. So these are essentially pure doses of tetrahydrocannabinol that has profound effects in the parts of the brain, the frontal lobe, the parts that develop thinking, that need the time to develop. And it takes till age 25 for those parts of the brain to develop. And interestingly, it's those parts of the brain that are rich in receptors for cannabis, cannabinoid receptors.
Studies have shown that 1 in 6 kids who start marijuana use before age 18 become addicted, and for daily users, the risk of addiction rises to 50%.
Marijuana, can certainly make people feel like they can't live without it, that they don't feel, I hear a lot of people tell me they don't feel normal if they're not high. And so that feeling that people have is what really drives a lot of the addiction that's hard to manage. And that in some ways is actually harder to deal with than the physical addiction.
So we have the data showing it is harmful for the brain because the brain is the target organ in the world of cannabis. I mean, alcohol, it's the liver, it's tobacco, it's the lung, and marijuana, the brain is the target organ.
And what we do know, and know really, really well, is that people who are young, whose brains haven't fully developed, are at real risk to the downsides and risks of cannabis. And that includes, on average, an 8-point reduction in intelligence quotient, IQ.
So one of the other things that we're seeing really over the last 2 years is this group of students, smaller group of students who are showing signs of what we call cannabis-induced psychosis. So these are students that are having problems with paranoia. They're having problems with reality testing. They're describing kind of bizarre behaviors that they engage in. It's just, it's incredible. It's so worrisome that there's such a cavalier attitude that it's so helpful with everything without understanding its long-term impact and how it affects a growing and a maturing brain.
So a friend of mine took her own life a little while back, and after I told my mom that I've been attempting too, and all of that, my mom had her come over when I said, no, don't tell her. She came over, and the one thing she said to me was, if I could have done anything to save my baby girl and get her the help she needed, I would have done anything, but now I get to see her sit on my mantle. And I just lost it after that. I looked at my mom and I'm like, what am I doing to my mom? Like, my mom's taking photos of me in cop cars trying to teach me lessons, and I'm showing up late at night and crashing my car and just doing all this stuff, and it just wasn't worth doing that to her. So I thought about both of them, and I chose to go away.
Kind of that moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was realization.
You're a kid and you don't exactly want to hear that your mom's a drug addict. I know she did a lot of pretty much anything. She used a lot of different stuff. I was 9 years old when I started finding out about her addiction. My dad told me, but I also connected the dots through school, because in the school I was in, we did the DARE program, and a lot of the things and signs that they had brought up about addicts, I had connected to my mom in a way, so I was able to know what was going on. In a way, I knew it was coming, that my mom was gonna die, but at the same time, like, even if you expect it, it doesn't make it any easier to go through. I was also in an angry stage because my mom made a ton of promises to me when I was younger, like, you can come live with me again, we'll be fine, we'll be this big happy family, and I didn't know where to put my anger at her, so it kind of just balled up, and I was really upset about it because, you know, a kid doesn't really realize what addiction is at first, so it was more of she just left me. It's hard to go through, and it is extremely hard to sit there and watch someone you love die and not be able to do anything about it.
In the last year, I had 2 students overdose, and they left us. I would say I teach at a school that's smaller, and my school has a population of about 100 kids. I would say out of that 100 kids, 95 of them at least smoke weed on a daily basis. That's because their parents supply it. And they don't have any knowledge of what they're actually doing when they dab, and which I would say because of the smell, they don't want to smell like weed when they're at school, so they're dabbing, they're using edibles, and they're using it at concentrates so high that they cannot function if they are not high. I think the ramifications of the amount of weed that kids are using is that they have such lack of emotion. They have no empathy. They are losing the ability to connect to other people. They're finding themselves isolated. When they're isolated, they have these weird paranoias where they've created all of these anxieties that don't even exist. But because they're already isolated, or because they've already taken themselves out of a community setting, that paranoia just builds on itself. So what we're seeing as teachers in the community that I teach in, kids just drop. They go away. You don't hear from them. They don't ask for help. They are in a state of depression that's so lengthy and so vivid that they are just gone. They walk in just like a zombie. They don't have color to their face. They probably haven't showered for a couple of days. Things that are so normal that we take for granted as adults, like showering, hygiene, brushing your teeth, having eyes that look awake, being able to smile with your eyes. I can't remember the last time I saw a kid smile with his eyes. Yeah, so it's to the point where they're just losing their soul. And even if you think that you're just starting with smoking weed every day to try to calm down, it's going to end somewhere else. 90% of the time, it's going to end somewhere else.
I had a really hard time after she died. I got really depressed when she died, and I didn't really want to be here at all. There's a lot of people who struggle with suicide, but I think, again, it's like where they stay quiet about it. Like a lot of the kids who are vaping or smoking or doing drugs or smoking weed, like that is their way of trying to handle the fact that they don't know what to do with themselves. Like a lot of people just want to be numb instead of feeling it, and they need help and they don't know how to ask for it or how to receive it, so they just numb themselves instead. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't really go to friends with that type of thing, still at my age, but like the better option in that situation is to find an adult that you that you trust enough to ask for help from. Because I think that a lot of times if you're asking from a friend, it becomes kind of difficult on both of you in that situation. If you're struggling, it's okay to get help. Like, it's not something that you have to be ashamed of or hide from, because there is way more people that struggle with this than you would think, because people are so scared to ask for help. So there's nothing to be ashamed of when you need help. You just have to take that step to ask for it. I mean, a lot of people would rather you be alive and asking for help than be dead and not able to get help.
How you doing?
Good, you?
I'm all right. What's going on? You mind stepping out of the car?
I sure can. It's good to
Jameson.
see you, Sergeant.
So great to see you too. So I hear nothing but good things are happening. So what's going on?
I'm very glad to hear about that. After that night you arrested me, it honestly kind of saved my life, because I didn't think I wanted to lean towards recovery, but after that night it was an eye-opener that I did have a problem and I did need to steer in a new direction of life, and I chose to go the way to detox, sober living, and rehab.
Keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you, I appreciate
Good
it.
seeing you. Take care.
Thank you.
Over the last 8 months, we have spoken to several thousand students and adults about high-potency THC, alcoholism, and addiction, and we think it's making a difference. Just by going and saying, hey, look, I'm in your age range, and I'm X, Y, and Z amount of days sober. It doesn't matter how long the date is, it's just that you're still persevering to it. Because I mean, I've had kids come up to me and talk to me and be like, hey, I haven't smoked weed in a week, and I'm like, congratulations, like that's amazing. Like, keep going. And I've had also other kids come up to me and say, hey, like, I've been a year. And I'm like, you keep going. Like, don't you feel so much better? You're a year sober. Like, how do you feel? And they always say, I feel great. It's inspiring. Keeps me going with, I want to keep pushing forward and what I'm doing, staying clean, staying sober.